Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and hopefully everyone's having a fantastic and lovely day so far, whether you guys celebrate or not, or maybe you guys are just kind of sitting here chilling, watching some YouTube videos and having a good day, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we actually have some pretty interesting news kind of coming over here when it comes to PlayStation, Sony, and everything else out in between. Now, when it comes to this stuff, we've been seeing a lot of back and forth from this court case. We kind of touched on a little bit of this before, and it's kind of crazy to see that basically PlayStation is almost admitting and kind of almost admitting defeat on the fact that they basically can't really go and keep up. And now they're literally saying straight up, and they're kind of going to put a lot of pressure when it comes to Xbox, pushing a lot of pressure on the monopoly, and putting a lot of pressure on the fact that like it might be taking billions upon billions of dollars to even have a running chance long term when it comes to Xbox. And this has always been kind of very intriguing as we've been discussing this news these past few months, because it does kind of keep on evolving into the fact of like Sony trying to go play the undercard role, while Xbox is trying to be like hey, no, we actually are the proper underdogs, and like we need this advantage to kind of go stay even. And it's always been the big back and forth as really big acquisitions, big legal battles, and well, big just back and forth between PlayStation and Xbox always are. So we have lots of stuff to go talk about, some pretty big things that Sony as well is saying, and a few other big stories too when it comes to like some other upcoming games with Callisto Project, God of War, and all that. So make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on as well for the brand new $500 Xbox Series X or PlayStation 5 giveaway. You get to pick and choose. We have the Twitter and Twitch stream down below for those bonus entries. We have the Target links down below in case you guys want to go and check out your local stores for Black Friday, and same with the Amazon too. We've had a lot of Amazon signups, and there's also a lot of Amazon deals too. You guys want to check them on out. So as we've been mentioning over here, there's been a big back and forth, and Sony's basically saying they're gonna, I don't want to say they're gonna have to give up, but they're basically saying that this is almost impossible to go and battle this really huge monopoly called Call of Duty. So we've kind of saw this from some of the court documents saying Battlefield cannot keep up as a Call of Duty competitor, says Sony. So Sony highlights the sales disparity between the two franchises and basically saying that Sony themselves, even for their own money, it's almost impossible for them to actually have a chance to go over here and actually go and win and be able to get more sales, get more proper like traction, and have people be in their consoles as number one. And number two, saying that even the second biggest game, and I'm sure if you guys have been in like the, like scene and video game scene or FPS scene for a while, typically it usually is Call of Duty, and then Battlefield probably number two, and then usually Halo or some other random game sneaks on in. If you're PC, you also got to rope in like the Valorant, the CSGO, etc. But when it comes to pure FPS and pure games like Call of Duty, it's almost impossible to be broken. So Sony's now highlighting and saying, pretty much throwing out the sales disparity between the two franchises, and literally does think that it's almost impossible for them to go and, well, compete. So Sony has alleged Battlefield failed as a Call of Duty competitor due to their sales disparity between the two, which makes a lot of sense because this last Battlefield had a really bad PR. The last Battlefield had not as good of sales. It went on sale pretty quick and had EA access packages. It was just all around, all over the place. So earlier on today, in the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, they actually published Sony's arguments, we kind of touched on this before, against Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, where Microsoft has argued that Battlefield would compete with Call of Duty. So basically, Microsoft's trying to be like, hey, Battlefield, people get hyped up for it. It drives a lot of sales. People want to play the game. It's good. It's a good vibe. Like, whatever. If PlayStation really wants to do something, they could work with EA. They could try to go and maybe have them in-house. You don't know if they want to throw a few $1 billion, maybe even try to buy the franchise and go and compete. And, well, then that's what they got to do. That's what Microsoft's trying to go push, because they're trying to keep on saying that Call of Duty's not like a huge game and all that. Now, I still think that PlayStation could, although it's kind of another one of their counter arguments, is that they could probably just go and invest the money and make their own proper game. But it does kind of go to show that Microsoft is trying their best to be like, hey, like my dudes, like we just let it slide. Let the game slide. Let us go get in this. Let's go have some fun. Come on. What's a few $1 billion between friends? A few $1 trillion companies. Who cares? So basically, Sony's disagreeing with this one and saying that they basically cannot go and compete with the latter. Same thing too, as well as we've seen them also mentioning that no matter how much money even Sony themselves invest, that they just cannot compete with Xbox, which if they're trying their best, throw Microsoft money around. So basically, the logic behind Sony's disagreement lies in the total sales figures of the two shooter franchises, where the Call of Duty series has sold over 400 million copies in total, which is ridiculous. That's a lot of copies. While Sony's writing that that's huge, both in terms of the sales on PC, on Xbox, or Sony itself. And then while Battlefield has sold a total of 89.7 million, which is still a good amount, making it a comparatively weak enough to fail as a competitor. Now, I kind of see both sides. I kind of think that Battlefield is enough of a competitor. They just need to make a good game. Like a lot of their games, like especially like the most recent Battlefield, had a good core and base. Like the gameplay was fun, but as I'm sure you guys have probably seen, there's just a lot of small issues when it comes to bugs, game crashes, server issues, the maps themselves, the gameplay. Like they had a lot of bots going on. They were moving game modes that people wanted. You needed more maps. Like there was a lot of like small issues that people kind of got sick of after a while. They kind of realized after a while, it's like, yeah, it's okay, but let's move on. Let's play a different game. But I feel like Battlefield really does have a competition with it. But Sony themselves thinks that it's just, even other big games, they just can't compete. They can't deal with it. But as well, that Sony just can't go and drop like these billions of dollars, which we kind of covered, I think, on yesterday's video, that they just can't afford it. Now, I think they probably could. And if they really wanted to, I would keep on saying get like a really like god tier 100-person studio and put like a lot of effort, pay them a good wage, but make it good. And then maybe in a few years expand it out, maybe, but it's still nuts to see. So they say Call of Duty is too entrenched for any rival, and they keep on saying they can't really compete if they actually do have Xbox buying this, no matter how well equipped to catch up. Sony says it's been a top-selling game for almost every year in the last decade, and in the first-person shooter genre, it is overwhelmingly the top-selling game, which I do think is true as well. There isn't like, I mean, some people might go meme or be like, I'm not playing Call of Duty or whatever. Call of Duty is Call of Duty, but it's one of those things that normal folks enjoy it. They play it. I myself have played it, checked out Warzone, etc. And like, it's one of those good enough games where it may not be the best game known to man, but it is good enough, and they're driving huge sales, and it kind of goes to show that. And if it's really hard to go and compete against a 400 million sale game, especially as a brand new IP, which Sony would have to go and do, let alone for things like Steam, let alone for things, you know, like, say, the Switch. It's just, I mean, this may not be their main demographics, but it's a big thing to note. So they also go and say, despite the similarities between even Call of Duty and Battlefield, the Battlefield franchise cannot keep up. Sony continues. As of August 2021, more than 400 million copies of Call of Duty have sold, as we mentioned, while Battlefield just sold 88.7 million copies. The CMA previously voiced concerns over Microsoft's proposed acquisitions of Activision Blizzard, publishing such statements in September, and that's why I keep on seeing these back and forth. So it kind of just goes to show that Sony, on prior statements, just can't keep up in terms of development costs, in terms of player base, in terms of sales, and in terms of budget. And then as well, they're saying that even the other bigger games, such as Battlefield, you can even use Halo as a good example too, is that it's hard to go and compete. Because you need to have Call of Duty #1, probably Halo maybe like 3 or 4 at this point, and then guess what? Battlefield will probably still either maybe have a Game Pass exclusive because they do have deals with EA, and at that point they do hit pretty much every big FPS game unless Sony does some crazy big buyout for EA or whatever it might be. So very intriguing to see, and it does kind of go to show that it's hard for, you know, Call of Duty. It's like it's just a big deal and Sony is worried about it. But as well, we've also had some kind of crazy stuff too, is even though like PlayStation's having issues with, you know, FPSs, apparently their single player games have been phenomenal. Or God of War has been doing awesome sales still, with their bread and butter, and apparently over 25% of players have beaten God of War Ragnarok so far, only 2 weeks after release. Now, that's also a very insane ratio because I myself play video games all the time, almost daily, especially my Twitch stream if you guys want to follow, and even I haven't beaten God of War. Although I've been taking my time with it, I'm like 20 hours in, it's a good game, but that just shows how committed people are for their game base, and everything else in between, which is very nice to see. Awesome, so good work on God of War. As well, we also had some pretty big drama too on the Callisto project, where apparently they tried their best to go and start like a day one or like DLC or first season DLC before the game's even out. And a lot of folks finally did have a chance to address that, saying they're not holding anything back for the main game, with a lot of people calling them out. We haven't even started working on brand new content yet because they're trying to get, you know, different types of sequences and animations, and it's all new stuff that we'll be working on in the next year, and fans have asked for even more stuff, so they're making it more of a priority for this next year too as well. And a lot of folks are just trying their best to be like, what's going on with this pre-game release DLC, which I agree is always rough to see. And last but not least, doing the same thing for the God of War topic. Apparently the God of War Ragnarok is the fastest selling first party launch so far ever on PlayStation history. So very cool to see on that one, even though they may not be doing good on FPS games. they are doing at least good on the single player side. So make sure you guys have a good Thanksgiving. I have a few more videos up throughout the day. Make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on as well for the brand new PlayStation 5 $500 or Xbox Series X giveaway. We have the Twitter and Twitch stream down below in case you guys want to follow. And as well, we also have the Target links, Amazon links. Check those on out for the sales and consoles. And I appreciate you guys all so much for watching here in the first place.